Hey everyone, this is Seth Klebe, the host of Watch the Tech. Thank you for coming and joining this episode. This is the last episode of the year, so concluding my first season. I have a lot to be thankful for. We've got over 10,000 subscribers at this point, and it's just been an incredible journey. I have an awesome guest to also close out the season. Before they come in, I want to talk about the watch that I'm going to be wearing for this episode. I think it's actually a perfect one because I'm pretty sure my guest also loves the color black. So what I have with me is the Hermes H08 in graphene. So this watch is actually my number one travel companion. So when I go out of the country and I want to be under the radar, a little stealth, this is the watch that comes with me. Normally and traditionally, I actually don't really love non-watch brands that make watches, but with this Hermes, it really changed the game for me. And the reason why is it's not so much about the brand, it's just about how damn well made this watch is. It is a workhorse. It feels very luxurious, but truly the best part for me is that no one knows when I'm wearing this what it is. And that's huge for me. Quiet luxury above all. Black is my favorite color. So it's a stunning watch. It actually works great whether it's a dinner outing or just a day out. It's a 100-meter water resistant screw down crown. It's got great lume. The black dial has a little bit of that touch of sunray finishing. But one of the hidden things I love so much about this watch is actually the back. You've got a great movement here. It's beautiful. It's well finished. It's got the Hermes H all over it, but the crystal in the back is actually blackened as well. So that's really unique. I don't have any other watches that do that. And then one other fun fact for this watch is the front, that dial again, it's actually blackened PVD coated gold. So it's got this extra touch of luxury. And while it's a graphene watch, so a very light material, everything else is titanium, the gold of the dial actually gives it a really nice weight to it. So it still feels like it has presence, not too much, not too little. It is perfect. And when I put it onto my wrist, I think the proportions are simply amazing. Yeah, just take a look at that. It's awesome. And last but not least, the sponsor of this episode to close out the season is Everest watch bands. You've heard about me talk about them a little bit, but this comes from the heart. They have been an incredible sponsor. They make some of the most high quality aftermarket watch straps that you can possibly buy. I highly recommend. If you're someone who's looking for a terrific rubber strap, you've got to check them out. I personally have had mine for years, and it feels and it looks like it's brand new every single time. I think it's a great value for money as well. The team is incredible, and I just don't think you can find a better aftermarket watch strap. I'm not a strap monster, but the Everest watch bands are perfect, and they're the ones that I would choose, and they're the ones that I do choose. So check out Everest. And if you like this episode, please do like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. All right, let's have our guests come in. John O'Brien, welcome to Watch the Tech.
What's up, Seth? Thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to have you on the show. This is going to be interesting because you're actually my first guest where you've worked in technology, but you've actually now fully pivoted to watches. And so to give everyone watching a little bit of context, so John here has worked at a number of tech companies. Prior to starting his business, Rocky Mountain Watches, he was at App Dynamics, where you were a sales engineer for a few years. And then most recently, you were at Grafana, also in sales engineering roles. But now tech is behind. You're doing watches full time. And I guess my first question here is, when did you officially start Rocky Mountain Watches?
Ooh, so the tech journey, absolutely right, in Grafana, and then AppD before that. And then before I was on the salesy side, I was an engineer had my roots in the DevOps space. It's been about 3 years and change doing that. And the joy for watches, I meant to actually have it out today, but I have my first watch that my wife got me. And I remember where I was working, and it was in the tech world. And it was a fossil watch, like a black and gold fossil watch, which is still one of my favorite color combos. So all along the journey, like the company definitely didn't start 10 years ago. I would say we just kind of went along. And then it was about the time it was into Grafana, probably like, let's just say 3 years ago, officially on paper. But it was a little bit before that was when the idea, at least at Rocky Mountain Watches, was started. Full time, to your point, it was Friday the 13th in September was my last day at Grafana, and then started officially. So we're like 3 months and a week or so in at this point.
Do you say it was Friday the 13th that you
Yes, it was.
officially left? I don't know if I believe in signs, but that scared the shit out of me.
It was. I kind of looked at it and I didn't realize it until like afterwards. I was like, wait, today's Friday the 13th. Ominous life changes are happening on the day. Maybe that's just how it's supposed to be. So I took it as a funny thing and just decided to run with it.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So I am curious as someone like I consider myself tangentially in the watch industry. You're in it, but you're starting a business, but you came from working in like the types of tech companies that I've worked for in my career. So I'm curious, are there principles and things that you've learned from your engineering days, from your AppD days and your Grafana days that have like directly translated to how you do business in the world of buying and selling luxury watches?
100%. And it's so funny every day from raising money for with some investors and like having to go like, wait, I don't want this to be a VC backed startup, and like all the pressures that come with that. Like one of the big things we do, especially like in engineering focused product that you're selling is technical discovery, but just the discovery process in general. And for me, that is something I love to run through with my clients. And maybe we'll talk about it a little bit, but I have like two avenues of my business. I have a website where you can go and just like, oh, I like that watch, let's snag it. Or, we can work together and I have clients, I know what they like and what they're looking for, or I'm on the hunt for certain things. And when it's that part of the process, like Seth, if you were to come to me and say, I want to watch, what I'm going to start with is it's almost like a three whys, right? Like our classic, like think the med pick. That's all the companies that came from was the medic style and whatever variations and flavors of the
Yeah.
month that was. But
Oh my
it
God.
stuck with me because it's
Is John McMahon gonna like come after me and say like we owe him money for using like a three wise trademark?
if he does that, I'm going to sell him a watch. So I hope he's ready. I hope his pocketbook's ready.
I've
Um,
actually heard he's a watch guy. Might need to get him on the show.
That would be a fun round table. But the discovery side is like the three whys. Why anything, why now, and why, it used to be why App Dynamics or why Grafana, but why Rocky Mountain Watches? And a lot of it has, I think my favorite story recently was I had a client who was looking for like one of their first, they'd liked watches for a long time, but wanted to buy their first spendy watch. And he's like, I'm not trying to spend 100K, but I'm not trying to spend 3K kind of thing. So I started asking like, what do you want to do with the watch? He's like, I want something for occasions to where people can look at me and go, ooh, that's a fancy watch on your wrist. I'm like, all right, that clues me in for a lot of brands because there needs to be likely recognition in the sense of maybe the model, but then also the brand. So that landed me into Rolex with him. And then another thing he said was he likes complexity. So we started digging into like, what does complexity mean? Does that mean like a complex dial, like a skeleton? Or does that mean like a complex dial, like just the guts of the watch are super deep? And he started telling me like what his background is. And he's actually, I think, has some scientist studies and he really just likes the ticking of how things work. And so I was like, all right, he said Rolex, and that just led me towards Sky Dweller, which for those listening at home that don't know, the Sky Dweller is Rolex's most complicated movement. You've got a GMT function, a calendar, a full, like you need to go look up the videos on these watches for setting the time with the bezel. It's a fascinating watch. And that ended up being exactly what he was looking for. And we went from that. The process of discovery of like learning just the second and third level questions that we talk about all the time in the tech industry, it's a human thing. Humans like to talk about things they're interested in, just like you and I are doing right now. So it was fun to kind of see that happen to him. And then on the other side, we actually just got him another watch where the Sky Dweller is the dress watch for sure. And then he just bought a Ulysse Nardin full skeleton watch from me. And that's kind of the same thing, complexity, but he wanted more of the skeleton dials for it. So it's an interesting, fascinating to see how it works, but it's been so helpful because it worked every day in my day jobs for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and it still works today. So thanks, John McMahon.
Right. Life lessons with John McMahon.
Yes.
So, I mean, when I do discovery or my team does discovery, sometimes we have customers, prospects where they're resistant, right? They don't want to actually answer the questions or they'll give half answers or deflect. I think that's also kind of common human nature while you're beginning to build trust with someone. Do you also experience that, or because it's watches and it's fun, they just fully want to give you every piece of information down to just the most minute detail when you ask for it?
I've had both. I've actually had both. And it's funny you asked that because I remember very vividly at the boot camp at App Dynamics, we did an objection handling exercise. And at the time, I think some of the folks that were running that were some of the best in the biz at doing this objection handling, especially for SEs. You're just, like you came from New Relic, you had a stint there. I was at AppD. We always talked about like how agents get installed and like what do they do and do they actually add load to a system, right? And like you think about all
Right.
the objection handling we had to do during those scenarios. It's not too dissimilar. I think a really common one that I'll just explain from my side, right, is I'm a watch dealer. There's a tray of watches here sitting off camera, right? These are all secondary or gray market watches. They're all perfectly fine in, various different conditions, but could be brand new to like ultra vintage and like used. So a common thing when I have this is people ask like, can you get Rolex at MSRP? And the answer is no, but yes, but no, but probably not. And I think a common one that I have to just go for that is there are watches that are market value watches, that they are the ones where the market is driving the price, just like many other, industries out there. So for me, I think about it like I can't get it from that, but I can get it at what the market is. And it depends on, someone may want to go build that relationship with Rolex. And someone's just like, I don't care, I want the watch now. And so that's a common one I have to kind of overcome is why is your price on this watch double what the Rolex website says? And that's probably one of the ones I think I've overcome that a few times, but sometimes
Right.
I'm just like, no, go establish the relationship and buy the 39 millimeter
Right.
Explorer because you like it and then get offered the Daytona in 2 years and people are happy with that. Like everyone's journey is different. So candidly, my answers are a little bit different per customer and client that I'm working with.
I was just going to make a comment that like the way that you handle objections in watches, I can tell it's very elegant, very well thought out. You've had the experience of doing it as well. Whereas like, if someone asked me that question about Rolex gray market, I would probably be like, it is called supply and demand. Next question.
And you could go on for hours about it and like the experience with working with like Rolex specifically. They're very well known for their waitlist, but then you go in and say they don't have a waitlist. There's a ton of watch content out there where they talk about this, and it's a real but not real thing. And I chuckle when I smile and I think about that because they are a household name for a reason.
Right.
Which is fascinating. So I like selling them. I like wearing them. You feel pretty badass when you're wearing a Rolex, but yeah.
I think if I could only keep one watch and I had to cover every single use case that I could think of for wearing a watch,
Yeah.
it very well might be one of my Rolexes. So speaking of wearing watches, what is on your wrist today, John?
Today is my all-time favorite watch. This is probably the watch that many folks at Grafana have seen me wear. Yeah, it's the Sapphire Sandwich. I would say the reference number, but I don't have it memorized because it's like 97 digits long and there's a bunch of decimal places. But look up the Speedmaster Sapphire Sandwich. Yep, this is the watch that's almost always going to be a go-to for me. Even if the watch business died and I never thought about watches again, I would be keeping this one.
Awesome. Does it have an exhibition case back or is it closed?
You want to see it? Who doesn't?
Yeah, I would love to, please. That's where I get my most joy from watches. I love seeing the movement play out. That's actually my one thing. I wish every Rolex you could actually see the movements, but they're also the one brand in my opinion that can shamelessly get away with not showing movements because they're just so perfect in literally every other way.
And it's funny too, like you take the exhibition back. Like, do you ever see the backside of a watch on your wrist? No, but like for conversations like this, you pull it off and talk about it. But
yeah,
the part of the Speedmaster for those listening at home is it was the very first watch that was worn on the moon, not this specific one. I don't have that much money. So it's fun because like to your point about Rolex and not having exhibition casebacks, I would say Rolex has the most boring caseback area in general, where the Omega has the first watch worn on the moon written around the ring of the case, the caseback. And then there's other bits of serial number, and lots of watches have different inscriptions. Rolex has literally nothing. The serial number is not back there. That's inside usually around the 6 p.m. on the dial. It's an interesting one that Rolex doesn't do that, although they do have a brand new Daytona model that has it, but I am not ready to afford that one at all for what it's going on the street.
Yes, and their first exhibition movements are pretty amazing. I'm curious if there's anything on the table that you've brought that you think has the best exhibition case back of the bunch? And ironically, or not even ironically, but the number one time when I am looking at an exhibition case back movement is usually when I'm on a plane, traveling somewhere, bored. I will just like take my watch off and I'm just like moving it around. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's what's up. That looks great.
It might actually be the Speedy in the current
Okay.
lineup. But what I was
Yeah.
going to say though is like I have this Cartier. Well, we can talk about it, right? But to your point, you can see the rotor in here moving, and this is how
Yeah,
the
it's
watch
beautiful.
winds, which is a big contrast to the Speedmaster, which is a manual wind to watch. Which that's another nerd fact for you is like why did the Speedmaster get chosen? It's because they designed and they already had it, but it was a watch that didn't need gravity to work, which is cool. So that's another reason why I love this watch. You feel very connected. Like every day or two, you need to wind it.
Mm-hmm.
Manually wind it. But I think this Cartier is probably one of them, and I'm realizing for the next time we do a podcast that I'll get some better lighting.
Oh, it's good. We're bootstrapped here all the way around, so it's all good.
I wanted to show the folks at home the front of the watch. This is a Cartier Tank MC. So if you're a taller, larger gentleman like me, this is a great Cartier for you compared to a lot of their smaller models. They don't make these
Nice.
anymore, but this is about a decade old. Fun watch.
Yeah. So, as someone who now has a watch business, you probably touch more, view more, research more watches than certainly the average person and even like the more advanced collector. So, are there any brands that over time you've just kind of gotten over?
I didn't know where you were going to take that, but gotten over. I have never been a big Hublot fan. I think some of that, and I'm actually working on like kind of shedding this mentality a little bit, because in the watch world they kind of have a weird stigma to them, or they went through a
I mean,
phase where their
let's
quality
be
control.
honest. They're the Nickelback of the watch industry.
The Nickelback. That's great. Yeah, and I think much like Nickelback is becoming a little bit more popular now and a little bit more accepted in the mainstream. People are tired of hating on it. Now they're going, wait, we kind of like it, and they have some good guitarists, and we want to use this. Hublot is kind of doing the same thing. And my thing is, I have a term that drives a lot of, and some of this is from the tech industry too, but I believe there's a watch for every wrist. That could be an Apple Watch, that could be a $10 Timex, that could be a Hermes HO8 like you've got, that could be a Speedmaster, that could be a Platona, that could be
Sure.
an RM, whatever you want, right? So for me, like there are people that like Hublot, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so for me as a watch dealer, what I've had to basically do is realize like my preferences and what I like. If someone asks, I can direct. And like obviously we're in sales after all, and sometimes the client doesn't know what they want, but they know they want something, and you need to help steer
Right.
them, which is the art of the discovery. But I think at one point, Hublot was that for me, and I think I'm getting over the fact that I was getting over them and just going like, there's a brand for everybody.
Sure. No, I understand that. And watches at the end of the day, it really is all about your preference, your stylistic choices, and all you or I love when friends and people in my network ask me watch questions because they just want to learn. And so it's like I've done a lot of the learning for them, and then I get to kind of teach and share. But yeah, ultimately, like you have to like it and want it on your wrist, not worry about what other people would perceive about that watch being on your wrist.
Another phrase that I've been kind of adopting is like a watch you love is a watch worth wearing. And I don't like that could be the sentimental watch for dad. That could be from dad. That could be, your first watch that was given to you by a loved one, a friend. And so what's the common watch for salespeople on their first deal? But it's the Submariner or a Rolex and the kind of thing. There's always going to be a memory attached to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone out there wants to create a memory with me and give me a watch, I am available to receive any number of beautiful timepieces. You can hit me in the comments and send me a watch. Why not?
I'll flip the question on you because I'm curious. Are there any brands that you're kind of over in your watch journey that you're kind of just like, next?
I won't say brand, but I can absolutely say model.
Okay.
So I was obsessed for about, let's call it 2 years with the Patek Aquanaut white gold blue dial. I thought that was just the epitome of fine watchmaking.
Mm-hmm.
I had my name on a list. Actually, I'm still probably on said list. But as we know, lists are kind of like the staircases at Hogwarts. They just move and pivot, and then you'll never actually get to where you want to go. That's just a reality, and I know
love that analogy.
But
Yeah.
Thank you. But as time has moved on and now I look at that watch, I look at it more as an interest rather than something that's a burning desire at this point. So it's waned for me. I don't need one. I love when my friends have them and I get to like try them on for a brief period of time. I was actually just at lunch with a friend from my watch club, and he was wearing the Aquanaut Travel Time. We swapped watches at lunch, and I had that on, and I was like, this is awesome. For this moment of time, this is awesome. Did I
Yeah.
walk away feeling like I needed it? No. I do want to see your Unimatic because for the first time ever, a few weeks ago, I was on a cruise
Mhm.
and I saw someone at one of the bars wearing a Unimatic. And I think I did a quadruple take because I was like, I have never actually just seen one of these in the wild.
So
And
funny.
they're really cool. Great entry, like price point, very legible. And I was just like, wow, okay. This is like someone put some thought into getting that watch, you know?
Yep. No, Unimatics they're fun because they're actually one of the brands that I've been able to become an authorized dealer for, which is a unique like thing. I really like brands that go like, we're just gonna do our thing and like we're gonna like come up with our own design identity. And I will say Unimatic has done a really stellar job with that. This is the U1S PD3, and this is one of their dive watches. They released this and another one. This one's I think water resistant down to 600 or 300. But this watch is cool because it's basically a tool watch and it's a daily driver for me. I love it on the NATO that it comes with. They also do a rubber strap. Well, they're very well sized. And the neat thing about Unimatic is they do everything from cool like watches that are kind of minimalistic in design with cool straps to things that are collaborations. And this actually just hit my personal collection. Very proud
Ooh,
of it.
okay.
But this is the Unimatic South Park collaboration. I live in Colorado. Rocky Mountain Watches kind of hits it right on the nose. So this is what Unimatic is known for: is these limited runs of one of 100, one of two, 300, something like that watches, and that's kind of their thing.
On the Unimatic topic, same pendulum, different swing though, in a different
Mhm.
direction. I think about what you described for Unimatic very similarly to how I look at Moser, H. Moser.
Yeah, yeah.
They are unique. They have their identity down. They don't really care about what other people think. They do really interesting collaborations. And I think their craftsmanship is absolutely out of this world. Would love at some point to get a streamliner from them. I mean, the one with the micro rotor would be an absolute dream, but their matrix green is
Yes.
also amazing, and I've been able to try on a couple of them, and they fit and feel like butter. They might be one of the coolest steel band watches available.
It's funny you mentioned them because one of my favorite watches is, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, I like wearing all black. It's like, my thing.
Same here. Same here. That's why I keep saying I need my next sponsor to just be like a black t-shirt company. I have yet to hear from them. Come on, watchthetechpod@gmail.com. You guys know how to find me. Let's go. Well, John, show me one more watch. I know you've got a bunch next to you, but like pick one more that you think people on my channel should think about, should look at. Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. All right, Norqain or Tudor?
Norqain.
Okay, I only have one from them and we'll talk about it, but it's super cool. And it's one of their originally released models. It's like a black diamonds encrusted piece. And you can't tell, but I put it on a green leather strap that I had. It's black and green.
Okay.
And I think it's
Unique.
cool because you talk about brands that are kind of just doing their own thing. You mentioned that with Moser. That's very much it with Norqain. They're Swiss made. And I wear this watch a lot. I encourage people to check them out, especially if you like exploring and collecting new pieces. And they do have they do have an exhibition case back.
John, our time's kind of coming to a close here, but before you go, I want to thank you again for
Yeah.
taking the time to come with me on this journey together. So thank you. You're also closing out the season, my very first season. So this is a special one for sure. But we've been talking a little bit about Rocky Mountain watches. Like, what else should people listening and watching know about your company?
So my term, and even my creative team hates it, but it tracks really well, but rugged luxury. Watches you wear for your adventures and then bring it back home and take it out on date night or the celebratory of, hey, we climbed Denali. So all of my like creative content, every photo you see has been created by my creative team. A bunch of C's, I realized. It's Colin, Connor, and Christian are the three dudes that have helped me out hugely. And then Nick, you're going to see these folks on these photos. I sent an AP diver, which is an almost $20,000 watch, and they took it ice climbing in Iceland. And that's one of the main photos on my main feed, right? I want people to realize like this is what these watches are meant for. 2025 is going to be the year of content for me. We've got an Emmy-winning producer for a large outdoor film that I just talked to this past week.
Everyone, go check out Rocky Mountain Watches. Also, if you liked this episode, please like and subscribe. It means the world to me as I'm growing this channel. Thank you again to Everest Watch Bands for sponsoring this episode. Starting next year, I will be looking for some new sponsors too. So make your way over to me, come talk to me, and let's see what we can possibly do together. Thank you so much, everyone.